babe, want to grab dinner? I found a new restaurant, Zara said. Kosi hesitated, staring at the message. Faith's word echoed in her head, but the thought of cooking for herself seemed laughable. She quickly typed the response. Of course, I could use some good food. That evening, she and Zara dined at a fancy rooftop restaurant overlooking the city's skyline. Zara noticed Kosi's usual enthusiasm for eating out and casually mentioned, "You know, I could teach you how to cook. It's not as hard as you think." Kosi scoffed. "Zara, please. Cooking isn't for everyone. I'm fine the way I am." Zara sighed but dropped the subject. She had learned not to push Kosi when she was stubborn. Days turned into weeks, and Kosi's lifestyle continued unchanged. She ordered food, ate out, and dismissed the nagging voice in her head telling her to be cautious. After all, she had eaten this way all her life. What were the odds of another bad experience? But fate had other plans, and this time, the consequences would even be more severe. Kosi's life had settled into a familiar pattern. Wake up, go to work, order food, eat, and repeat. Her hospital experience was nothing but a distant memory. Something she had convinced herself was a one-time incident. After all, it had never happened again. So why worry? One afternoon at work, her colleague and friend Faith walked over to her desk, looking tired and hungry. "Kosi, please order food for us." Faith sighed. "I woke up late and didn't have time to cook." Kosi smiled. "You have finally joined my team." "Cooking is overrated, my dear. Let me place our order." She quickly made an order from her favorite eatery, the one she had been obsessed with lately. Within 30 minutes, their food arrived. Steaming hot and smelling delicious, they set up their lunch and began eating, chatting about office gossip and their weekend plans. Everything was going well until Faith suddenly froze, her fork at mid-air. Her expression turned from delight to shock. "Kosi," she said in a low, disturbed voice. Kosi looked up, confused. "What?" Faith didn't say a word. Instead, she pointed at Kosi's plate. Kosi followed her gaze and felt her stomach twist. Lying motionless in her jollof rice was a dead cockroach, half submerged in the sauce. A wave of nausea hit her as she pushed her plate away. Faith did the same, disgust written all over her face. "Kosi, this is so unhygienic. You eat here all the time, don't you?" Kosi swallowed hard, trying to mask her discomfort. "Faith, it's probably just a mistake. Even the best restaurants can have slip-ups. Let's not overreact." Faith's eye widened. "A mistake, Kosi? This isn't just about one bad meal. What if we hadn't noticed and eaten it?" Kosi sighed and shrugged. "Look, it happens. I'll call the restaurant and complain. They will probably apologize and offer a free meal. No big deal." Faith shook her head in disbelief. "Kosi, you need to take this seriously. You almost died from food poisoning before, and now this. You can't keep ignoring the signs." But Kosi wasn't ready to listen. She refused to believe that something she enjoyed so much could harm her. "It's just one mistake," she repeated firmly. "It doesn't mean I should stop eating here." Faith sighed in frustration but decided to drop the conversation. She knew Kosi was stubborn and no amount of reasoning would change her mind. As Kosi packed up the uneaten food and tossed it into the trash, a small voice in her head whispered that Faith might be right. But just like before, she silenced that voice, convincing herself there was nothing to worry about. She would soon learn, however, that some warnings should never be ignored. It was supposed to be a regular lunch break, another afternoon of indulgence at Kosi's favorite eatery. She had convinced Faith to come along, despite the cockroach incident from the previous visit. Faith. Despite the cockroach incidents from the previous meal. Faith, stop overthinking. I'm sure they've cleaned up their act. You will love the food, Kosi assured her as they settled into their seats. Reluctantly, Faith agreed, though she was still wary. They placed their usual order, and soon steaming plate of rice, soup, and fried plantains were served. The enticing aroma filled the air, and for a moment all doubts were forgotten. Halfway through her meal, Kosi's stomach let out an ominous rumble. At first she ignored it, but the pain came back, sharp and urgent. Beads of sweat formed on her forehead. Faith, Kosi's voice was strained. Where's the restroom? Faith looked up from her plate. I think the waiter said it's to the right. Kosi barely heard her. The cramps intensified and panic set in. Clutching her stomach, she rushed towards the back of the restaurant. In her distress, she turned left instead of right, pushing open a door without thinking. What she saw made her stomach lurch. The room wasn't a restroom. It was the back of the kitchen, a hidden disaster zone. A heap of unwashed, grease-covered plates sat in the corner, stacked high like a monument to filth. The air reeked of rotten food. The floor was smeared with thick, dark sludge, and in one corner, a pile of discarded, rotten meats lay in a puddle, swarmed by bustling flies. Her eyes darted to the cooks. They were women in filthy and stained aprons, their hands coated with grime. One particular plump and dirty woman with unkempt and uncovered hair stood at a wooden table, kneading dough. As Kosi watched, horror struck. The woman scratched her armpit, then absent-mindedly rubbed her behind, before returning to kneading without washing her hands. Kosi gasped, covering her mouth in shock. As if that wasn't enough, a rat darted across the floor, disappearing into a hole in the wall. Another one, and another one followed. She felt the bile rising in her throat. The urge to use the restroom was forgotten. She turned on her heel and bolted out of the room, her stomach churning violently. Bursting into the dining area, she didn't stop until she reached Faith. We need to leave, now, she said, breathless and shaking. Faith stood up, startled. What's wrong? I will explain later, please let's go. The urgency in Kosi's voice was enough. Faith dropped her fork and grabbed her bag. Without another word, they hurried out of the restaurant. The moment they reached Kosi's apartment, she collapsed onto the couch, still shaking. Okay, talk to me, Faith demanded. Kosi took a deep breath, still processing what she had seen. Then she told Faith everything. Faith's jaw dropped. Kosi, are you serious? I swear on everything, Faith. It was the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. I have been eating there, ordering from them every single day. Faith shook her head in disbelief. And you thought I was overreacting. Kosi, this is exactly what I was warning you about. Kosi buried her face in her hands. The images of the filthy kitchen, the scratching cook, and the scurrying rats were burned into her mind. For the first time in her life, she felt true regret. For the first time, she realized she had to change. The experience at the eatery had left Kosi shaking, but instead of wallowing in disgust, she made a decision. She had to change. She could no longer entrust her health to the unknown kitchens of strangers. If she was going to eat, she needed to be in control. The next day, Kosi walked into a bookstore and purchased a few beginner-friendly cookbooks. She spent hours on the internet and on YouTube, watching cooking tutorials, reading food blogs, and learning about basic kitchen techniques. The names of ingredients that once seemed foreign now became familiar. The first time she attempted to cook, it was a disaster. The rice was too soft, the stew was too salty, and the vegetables overcooked. But instead of giving up, she laughed at herself and tried again. Slowly, she started to get better. Her food wasn't as refined as the dishes she once ordered from top-tier restaurants, but that was okay. At least she knew where it came from. At least she knew it was clean. One evening, as Kosi stirred a pot of simmering jollof rice, there was a knock on her door. "Come in," she called, wiping her hands on the kitchen towel. She opened the door to find Zara standing there, looking a little confused. "Kosi, what's that smell?" Zara sniffed the air. Are you cooking?" Kosi grinned. "Yes, come in." Zara stepped inside, still in shock. She followed Kosi into the kitchen, where a bubbling pot of jollof rice sat on the stove, alongside a frying pan of plantains. "Kosi!" Zara's eyes widened. "Since when?" Kosi shrugged. "Since I had the worst food experience of my life." She chuckled. "Let's just say I have learned my lesson." Zara let out a laugh. "Wow, I never thought I would see this day." She peered into the pot, then turned to Kosi with a teasing smile. "Want some help?" Kosi sighed in relief. Please, I still don't get the spice balance right." Together they cooked, Zara giving tips while Kosi followed her lead. They laughed and chatted, reminiscing about old times and their friendship. When the food was finally ready, they sat down to eat. Kosi took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. This is actually really good." Zara smiled proudly. "I have to say, I am impressed. You've come a long way, Kosi." Kosi nodded. She felt proud of herself. For the first time, cooking didn't feel like a chore. It felt like self-care. And as she savored the meal she had made with her own hands, she realized this was just the beginning of a new, healthier chapter in her life. A month had passed since Kosi embarked on her journey of self-improvement. Cooking had now become a part of her life, something she embraced with pride. She no longer saw it as a burden, but as a skill that empowered her. One quiet evening, she sat curled up on her couch, watching a romantic movie and enjoying the scent of freshly cooked jollof rice lingering in the air. Life felt peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, she felt content. Then came a knock at the door. Frowning, Kosi got up. She wasn't expecting anyone. As she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. Standing before her was Kelechi. He held a bouquet of red roses, his expression a mixture of regret and hope. Kosi's heart pounded as she met his gaze. "Kosi," he said softly, "I know I have no right to be here. But please, can we talk?" Kosi hesitated, the pain of his sudden departure still lingering. But she stepped aside, allowing him in. Kelechi took a deep breath. "I was wrong to walk away. I should have helped you instead of judging you. I let my expectations cloud my understanding, and I hurt you. I'm so sorry, Kosi." She remained silent for a moment, staring at him, searching for insincerity, but all she saw was genuine remorse. Then, with a small smile, she turned and walked into the kitchen. When she returned, she placed a steaming plate of jollof rice and chicken before him. Kelechi's eyes widened in disbelief. You cooked this?" Kosi chuckled. "I did." He picked up a spoon, took a bite, and his eyes lit up. "This is amazing, Kosi. How?" He shrugged playfully. "Let's just say, life has a way of teaching us what we refuse to learn." Kelechi set down the spoon and reached for her hand. "I'm so proud of you." and I regret not being there to support you." Tears welled in Kosi's eyes, but they were not of sadness. They were of growth, of healing. Months later, surrounded by their family and friends, Kelechi went down on one knee and proposed. With a heart full of joy, Kosi said yes. As they stood at the altar on their wedding day, they made a vow, not just to love each other, but to build a home filled with understanding, support, and the warmth of homemade meals shared with love. And with that, Kosi's journey came full circle. Now, here are some key takeaways from Kosi's story. Kosi's journey teaches us that no matter how deep-seated a habit is, we can always make a change if we choose to. Growth starts with one decision, a decision to do better. Convenience is not always the best option. Kosi relied on eating out because it was easy, but she eventually learned that convenience often comes at a cost, whether it's health risk, lack of personal development, or dependence on external factors. Pride can hold you back. Kosi initially rejected Zara's help because of pride. Sometimes admitting we need help and accepting guidance from others can be the first step towards our real progress. From her hospital scare to finding a cockroach in her food, Kosi kept ignoring the red flags until she had no choice but to face reality. Life often warns us. Before disaster strikes, we must learn to listen. True friends want the best for you. Zara didn't mock Kosi for not knowing how to cook. Instead, she offered to help. Real friends push you to grow, even when it might not be easy. Relationships require understanding and growth. Kelechi initially walked away when he found out Kosi couldn't cook, but later realized he should have helped her improve instead. At least, he should have tried to see if she was open to being better. Relationships thrive on support, not just expectations. Hard work brings reward, and that's true. You must put in the work if you want to see the result. Kosi struggled at first, but through persistence, she learned to cook and gained control over her lifestyle. Anything worth achieving requires effort and commitment. So guys, if you stayed till this end, please smash the subscribe button, like, and drop your comments. Drop where you're watching these from, and drop your takeaway, because we would love to hear from you. Would love to know what your take is on this. If you have a personal experience, if you know someone who has an experience, also feel free to drop, and we'll be glad to interact with you in the comment section. Before you go again, do not forget to subscribe and join the family as we drop stories within the week. Okay, bye.